Hi, this is 5 reasons why you're not rich. Hi, this is Greg, and today we're going to talk about why you're not rich, and hopefully we're going to help you to understand, what are some of the things that you need to do to get on the path to becoming more wealthy. Okay, so let's get right into it. So in thinking about this, the first misconception that people have is that they can get wealthy by trading time for money. Okay, now what does trading time for money mean? That's basically that you have a job and you are basically working, you're going to a 9-to-5 job or some other kind of job where you're expending your time and you're getting paid for that. Okay, it's a typical traditional job. Now, why is it that you can't get wealthy by working for somebody else? Okay, I will take it one step further and say it's literally impossible in most cases for you to get wealthy in this manner. Now, why is this? Okay, number one, there's only so many hours in the day that you can work. Okay, so going right into it, you're basically limited by how much money you can make because you're getting paid a certain rate and there's only so many hours you can work. So right there's a limitation, okay? The second thing is the tax code is structured in such a way that when you work for somebody else and you're expending your time for money, you're gonna get taxed at whatever income level you're at the highest possible rate that you can ever be taxed. Now, why is that? The reason for that is when you work for somebody else and you're a quote employee, you have a tax rate, right? And you can't deduct any of your expenses related to your job from your salary or your commissions or whatever. In other words, you can't deduct the miles on your car, you can't deduct your gas, you can't deduct your clothes, you can't deduct really basically anything, okay? As opposed to when you have your own business, you can, okay? Now, let me just give you a couple of statistics that will drive this home further. The average person in the United States makes $35,000 a year, okay? And a married head of household makes about $64,000, okay? Out of that money, you will be taxed at whatever your marginal tax rate is for the federal, the state. Then if you own a home, you're going to pay property taxes. So by the time you're done paying all of your taxes, federal, state, and local, you're going to have far less than you're making under any circumstances, okay? Now, if we take this to the most logical extreme, let's say somebody makes $1 million on Wall Street, okay? As an example, okay? Leaving aside the fact that far fewer people make $1 million on Wall Street than years ago, but let's just use that as an example, okay? If you work in New York and you make $1 million, your marginal tax rate will be, when you figure state, city, which is, I guess city is local, federal, right? Your marginal tax rate is going to be at least 50%. Ultimately, you're probably going to pay roughly $500,000 in taxes. Okay, so now you're down to $500,000 rather, right? You with me? So out of that $500,000, you have to pay your mortgage, your property taxes, the insurance on your property, you have to pay for your cars, you have to pay for your car insurance, you have to pay, if you have any children, you have to pay for your children, you have to pay for, just all your living expenses, lawn care, on and on and on and on, right? So if you're living a fairly affluent life, which you would be if you were making $1 million, that takes it down to about, let's call it, after all your expenses, let's say $300,000 in expenses, now you have $200,000, okay? So out of that 200,000, you have to save for your children's college. You have to buy life insurance. You have to buy, you know, all of the other discretionary things that you spend money on, vacations, second home, whatever. And so when you come down to it, you might be lucky to net out $100,000. Okay? All right. So you're making $1 million, which sounds like a tremendous amount of money, but at the end of the day, when you filter through an affluent lifestyle, you might net out $100,000. Now, okay, if you're super cheap, maybe you'll net out $200,000. Okay, but if you net out $100,000, right? How long is it going to take you to be worth $10 million? Which in today's world is rich, but you know, it ain't that rich. Okay, so if you net out $100,000, how many years is it going to take you to have $10 million? Okay, think about that. We'll come back to that. The second reason why you're not rich is thinking you'll become rich by saving. Okay? Now, while don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that saving is bad. Saving is good, all right? And everybody wants to save money and everybody tries to save money, right? But you're not going to get rich purely by saving. Okay? And the reason is that, again, you can't save enough. You can't save enough by scrimping and saving to put into a 401k or to put into a savings account to have an appreciable amount of money and live in an area like, you know, New York or New Jersey or LA or San Francisco. Why? Because your living expenses are so high that you'll never save enough to maintain your lifestyle. And this has been proven time and time again. And it's the reason why most people get to retirement age and they don't have any appreciable savings. Okay? Let's go back to what I said before. The average person in the United States makes $35,000 a year, right? The average married household makes $64,000 a year. And we're the richest country in the world, okay? So when you go through the math of what it takes to live, you can't get there from here. You cannot save enough to retire. And this is why in the old days they had pensions, right? Because they knew intuitively that people would not either have the discipline or, you know, would not have the ability to you know, to be able to save enough for retirement. The third killer, and the reason why you're not rich, is living above your means. Okay, now this, in many ways, is the American way. Again, you know, the drive to appear wealthy is stronger than the drive to become wealthy. And as a result of that, most people put their effort into looking wealthy rather than actually being wealthy. And so most people in the United States, it's sad to say, live above their means. And what they do to bridge the gap is they basically take on a lot of credit card debt, which just puts them further and further in the hole. Okay? It's just math. I mean, if you're borrowing from the credit cards at 23% and you know, you're using credit cards to maintain a lifestyle that you basically can't afford, it's just a matter of time before you get into financial trouble, and it's going to actually take you farther and farther away from being able to accumulate any significant capital. All right. Now the fourth one that I just really love this one, because this comes right out of Upbringing 101, and it's one of the biggest, you know, lies out there, but yet many people believe it's true. and I hate to bust your bubble, but number 4 is thinking that you're going to get rich by budgeting. Okay? Now, so many people think, oh, if I just discipline myself and I just budget and cut my expenses and sacrifice, that's going to be the way I'm going to become wealthy. And again, this is one of those, you can't get there from here type of things. Wealthy people don't focus on the cost side so much as the revenue side. Okay, if you're one of these people that's just super cheap and you're constantly, cutting corners and, trying to eliminate phone bills and little things like this to cut the cost side, and you think that that's going to make you ultimately wealthy, you're totally wrong, okay? Focus on the revenue side. If you spent half as much time as you focus on the cost side, thinking about how can I make more money, how can I hold my cost constant and make more money, that is the way that wealthy people think. And this always reminds me of a fellow that I used to work for when I was on Wall Street. This subject came up a couple times, and he was like, he's extremely wealthy, and he was like, I never once think about the cost side. I only focus on the revenue side. Okay? That's pretty interesting, okay? So again, the takeaway from this is, yes, obviously be rational about the cost side, but spend your time and your creativity and your brain power on how can you make more money, not how can you cut more expenses, okay? And then the last one, which is again really a killer, and I think a lot of people suffer from this, is lack of initiative when it comes to money and when it comes to making money, okay? And this goes back to what I said earlier. A lot of people want to become wealthy. A lot of people think about being wealthy. A lot of people are envious of wealthy people, right? But those very same people, very, very few of them actually take the time to think about what does it take to actually become wealthy, okay? And people who don't achieve any appreciable wealth, much less generational wealth, they generally want to stay within their comfort zone. They don't want to spend the time or take the massive action that's involved in actually becoming wealthy. Okay? And one of the things that I always think about is, and I've seen it in myself too, every time you see a successful, wealthy person, who made it on his own, I'm not talking about people that inherit wealth, I'm talking about anyone who has struggled and come from a very low level and brought himself or herself up to a high level when it comes to wealth or achievement. You are seeing a person who persevered through many uncomfortable, unhappy, disappointing situations and rose above those situations to become successful. Okay? It's easy to look at somebody and say, oh, you're rich, you don't understand what it's like, but every single one of those people struggled. Every single one of those people failed. Every single one of those people picked themselves up by their bootstraps and tried again and just did not give up. Okay? Life's a marathon, guys, and it's not for the faint of heart. If you don't have what it takes, if you don't have the gumption or you're not stubborn enough to face defeat and get up every time you're knocked down and just keep going forward and just refuse to give up, you should be working for somebody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. If you want to live in your comfort zone and just do your things and have your interests and not have a lot of pressure, by all means, know thyself and and go that route. But on this subject of taking initiative and going in the direction of wealth, study how to make money. Study areas, real estate, okay, internet marketing, starting an online business, stocks. How do you invest in stocks? How do you make money in the stock market? How does it all work? Or, an interest that you may have, which, may not be money oriented, but if you're really good at it, and if you can, start your own business and you can get some traction with it, and it's something that you can commit to for the long term, you're going to naturally be more successful at that. You're naturally going to make more money at that, and you will be able to take care of all of the tax benefits that you have in either investing in real estate or having your own business. Okay? So, initiative when it comes to money is very, very important. Okay? So anyway, that pretty much summarizes what I wanted to talk to you about today. If you got value, please hit the like button. I'd love to hear your comments. And smash the bell so you get notified. And also, subscribe. I mean, I'm trying to put out a lot of content that is valuable in these different subjects. We talk about business, investment, and real estate, all in the context of the digital age. And if that's of interest to you, please subscribe, and we'll have some more content coming your way right away.